Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshulamiलितं Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaye Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantamanapeta Apeta Krityam Rapaino Vedaha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmaitaya Taravo Binedus Tam Sarvabhutam Hridayam Unimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudidayat Bhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshay Kiptascha Kamari Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanna Brinde Namaste Charanada Vindam Tove Vasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So we are going to begin by offering our most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalita Bhavishta Om Vishnu Pad Asto Tarsata Sri Simad Abhaya Charanadavinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada, and unto Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalita Bhavishta Om Vishnu Pad Asto Tarsat Sri Simad Bhakti Vedanta Narayana Gosvami Maharaj, and our exalted Upana Guru Varga, and the Sama Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. So, we have been hearing about the glories of Srimati Radharani, and we celebrated her appearance day very happily, very wonderfully. But we're still going to read a little bit more. We must. We have to. There's so many things to read. We could spend the next many months on this, but at least a few more days. So what I'm going to go, if you go to the purebhakti.com website, there's a whole section on Sri Radha. And this particular article I'm going to read is from a lecture given in 2009. August 28th, in the morning, by Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj. Very beautiful, many, many sweet topics in this. So, I think everybody will appreciate it. So, we begin. Srila Narayana Maharaj is saying, so wait, imagine now you're in Vrindavan. This was probably given at the Rup Sanatan Gaudiya Math, maybe Keshavji Gaudiya Math, probably Rup Sanatan in Vrindavan. It was bigger at that time. And we've all been to Raval and we've all been to Varshana. So when we're hearing these descriptions, allow your mind, your heart to take you to that place. Gurudev would always say, give me your ears for the next few moments, And he would say, let me take you to Vrindavan. And that's not an imagination. That's a real thing. We are enjoined to do service in Vrindavan. That's the essence of all advice, right? Tandama rupa charitari sukirtananu smrtido kramena rasana manasi niyoja tistan vraje tad anuragi jananugami. What is it? Kalam nayam itupadesha sadam. Right. Means to always chant the holy name, the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and remembering their glories, their personalities, their pastimes in your heart, and do this under the guidance of a follower of the, first of all, there's two kinds of followers. There's the followers of the Goswamis, Rupa Sanatan, in our line, and they are playing the role of sadhaks following themselves, actually, following Rupa Manjari, Vilas Manjari, Lavanga Manjari, Rati Manjari, meditating and going deeply into those pastimes internally, and teaching us how to perform our bhajan. They're performing bhajan not externally. It appears external, but they're going very deeply internal in Vrindavan. So we are meant to go to Vrindavan and be under the guidance of this quality of Vaishnava. And if you can't go to Vrindavan directly, physically, then you go by mentally, by heart. And we're not so expert, so deep, but we can do something. We can try. Anyone who's been to Vrindavan, the seeds, the samskars are in your heart, and by nurturing them, by chanting and trying to remember, then it becomes stronger and stronger. Right? So let us be in Vrindavan in the company of Srila Narayana Maharaj. Now remember, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, the Vaishnavas never leave. He who reasons ill, who says a Vaishnav dies, for thou art living still in sound. Right? And also, the Vaishnavas, unlike us, are not under the control of the threefold time. Their pastimes are all eternal. And in other words, they can be always present. Just as when the inhabitants of Vrindavan are remembering Krishna's Leela, it's as if they are immersed in it. When you read Gopal Champa, you see that, how deeply immersed they become, hearing the narrations of Snigdhakant, Madhukant. And at the end of the narration, the panegyrists, the poetic narrators, will tell everyone, wait, come back now. You know, your Krishna's right here. We're all in Nanda Baba's courtyard. So for Gurudev, he's always with us. And the pastimes we had with him, with our gurus, being in Vrindavan, that's always there. It's just the conditioning of material time that makes us think that we cannot access it. Right? Now, material pastimes, they're gone. Again, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, forget the past that sleeps. That's finished. But the pastimes with transcendental personalities and in transcendental places, they're always enduring in our heart. So let's go to Vrindavan in our minds, in our heart, and listen to Srila Bhaktivinoda Narayana Maharaj give this lecture. And he says, throughout Raval and Varshana, the residents celebrated Radhastami yesterday. This is because they do not deeply contemplate the Vedic time periods, the titis. They do not see whether or not a titi is pure. That's a whole science. In the Vaishnava Sampradaya, however, the consideration of the titis is very important. We deliberated on this matter, and therefore we are celebrating Sri Radhastami on this day. So sometimes there's a mixture of two titis at sunrise, or the previous day's titi, and it may still be existing at sunrise. And so that's a mixture, so considered impure. So we observe Radhastami on the next day. That's what happened in 2009. Last evening, I discussed how Srimati Radhika appeared in Raval in the Jamuna River on a 1,000-petal lotus flower. Ooh, I think that little lecture is there as well. If we finish this, I'll jump to that one and read that. There's a very sweet pastime there. There are two births described for her, and they are both correct. In this age, she appeared in Raval. In another, she appeared in Varshana. Even Sri Krishna is unable to fully describe the qualities of Srimati Radhika. And again, he's going to quote this verse, which we heard the last few days. Let it sink into your heart. Devi Krishna Mai Prokta Radhika Paradevata Sarva Lakshmi Mai Sarva Kanti Sammohini Para. This is from Adi Leela, 4th chapter, verse 83. The transcendental goddess, Srimati Radharani, is the direct counterpart of Lord Sri Krishna. She is the central figure for all the goddesses of fortune. She possesses all the attractiveness to attract the all-attractive personality of Godhead. She is the primeval, internal potency of the Lord. So, Srimati Radhika is the goddess of all goddesses. The word Krishna Mayi in the above verse means that all of her bodily limbs are composed of Mahabhav, the highest ecstatic love for Krishna. She anoints herself with the sneha, or the affection of Krishna, and also with the affection of Lalita, Vishaka, and her other Sakis. That's very difficult for us to understand when they talk about the ornaments and the clothing and composed of all these varieties of moods. The spiritual energy is very different than this world that we inhabit, where we are surrounded ourselves by dead matter, animated by the soul within. With the soul leaves, it just flops dead. There's no life to it. And then we use dead things to decorate ourselves. But in the spiritual world, everything is Satchit Ananda, fully conscious, eternal, right? Full of knowledge, relationship. And so all these aspects of Srimati Radhika, again, they're her energy, and she's decorating herself with her affection in the form of ornaments, in the form of clothing, many descriptions like that. Something to contemplate. Don't worry if we don't understand. It's just extraordinary, remarkable, wonderful. So Sri Raghunath Das Goswami explains in his poetry how she takes her bath. He writes, this is in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 8, 162 to 167. This is actually Ramananda Roy speaking, but he spoke, and then his teachings to Mahaprabhu were passed on to Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Raghunath Das, from him directly, and sometimes to Rupa Goswami and then to Raghunath Das. So they will appear later also. So, quote, "The body of Srimati Radharani is a veritable transformation of love of Godhead. She is the dearmost friend of Krishna, and this is known throughout the world. That supreme ecstasy of Srimati Radharani is the essence of spiritual life. The supreme ecstasy of Srimati Radharani is the essence of spiritual life. Her only business is to fulfill all the desires of Krishna." That's definitely a Srila Prabhupada translation. You know, when Srila Prabhupada would use that, your role, your purpose, your function. He'd always use the word business. Her business, the business of Krishna, the business of Krishna's devotees. It's very nice. Srimati Radharani is the topmost spiritual gem. And the other gopis, Lalita, Vishaka, and so on, are expansions of her spiritual body. Srimati Radharani's transcendental body is brilliant in luster and full of all transcendental fragrances. Lord Krishna's affection for her is like a perfumed massage. So again, we always hear about Lalita, Vishaka, and the others, expansions of her own spiritual body. And that includes Chandravali, that includes all the gopis, and yet we also read in more detailed explanations how the gopis are divided into different camps, right? There's Radhika's own group, her Svapaksha group, and then there are the followers of Chandravali, who appear to be Vipaksha, competitors to Srimati Radhika. And then there are those who are actually neutral towards Radhika and favorable to Chandravali, to Tashta. And then there are those who are neutral to Chandravali and more inclined to Radhika, the Srihurt. And all these groups are subdivided. And in the pastimes of love, there's competition for pleasing Sri Krishna. right? And sometimes they appear to be opposed to each other, right? And they can even speak harsh words about each other. But it's not anything like the competition and the jealousy that we experience in this world. They're all expansions of Radhika herself. So she herself is expanding in these different forms, in these different moods, only to give Krishna infinite variety of pleasure and joy, and to increase the relish of service and the desire for service amongst all of them. Remember, even in this world, if you don't have good competition, your own level of performance in any field will just level off. There's no incentive to improve, to increase, right? If you're in sports, that's very easy to understand, you know. If you can easily defeat everybody, you become very lackadaisical about it. Oh, hum, you know, Or in any field of arts, right? If you're a musician, you know, you want to strive to be the first chair or the best amongst all of them. It encourages you to do better and better. So in the service of Krishna, all of these different varieties, Radhika expands herself in these different ways to enhance the competition to give pleasure to Krishna. And that's what Srila Prabhupada tried to convey to us. He used the word transcendental competition in book distribution and everything else. But the transcendental competitor for the service of Krishna, they're still overjoyed about the successes of the other, because the success of the other is meant to give satisfaction to Sri Guru and to Radha and Krishna, to Mahaprabhu. That's our objective. If they become pleased by somebody's service, then we should also be pleased. But what we should also be thinking is, oh, they're doing so much nicer than me. I want to come up to that standard. I want to be like them. That's why in their songs, our acharyas are always praying to their predecessors. You please, help me, bless me to become like you. Right? So she expands herself. So never impose the mundane sense, oh, we don't like this, or dare to insult Chandravali or any of these other gopis. Oh, you're finished then. You're finished. Actually, in their Leela, they're cousin sisters also, Radhika and Chandravali. Well, you can't insult anyone from Radhika's family. Don't criticize Jatila, except in a funny way, in the basis of the Leela. But Jatila, who appears to be so opposed to Radhika, not to Radhika, but to Krishna and Radhika meeting, she loves Radhika. It's her daughter-in-law. She wants all good fortune for her. So she does all these crazy things to keep Krishna away, but actually creates the conditions by which their Leela, their pastimes together, their meeting, will take place in increasingly clever and charming ways. Right? That's how we have to see everything. It's all on the stage. When people write ordinary dramas, a drama or a play or a movie or whatever, a book, it wouldn't be very entertaining unless there's a hero and an anti-hero, right? And some struggle has to be there. Otherwise, it's boring, right? And the greater the struggle, the greater the victory at the end, right? So, now we get to hear something more. The next part of this verse, right? After hearing that Srimati Radhika's transcendental body is brilliant in luster and full of all transcendental fragrances, Lord Krishna's affection for her is like a perfumed massage. Goes on, Srimati Radharani takes her first bath in the shower of the nectar of compassion, Karunya Amrita. Sikhananda Maharaj mentioned this on Sunday, if you were there. And she takes her second bath in the nectar of youth, Tarunya Amrita. After her midday bath, Radharani takes another bath in the nectar of bodily luster, Lavanya Amrita. She puts on the garment of shyness, which is her black silk sari. Compassion, youth, and luster. Right? So Gurudev goes on to say, and this compassion, remember, this is the such an important aspect of Srimati Radharani. And it's her compassion which compels Krishna, in the form of Mahaprabhu, to become Patita Pavan, right? Mahavananyaya. Krishna's compassionate, but Radhika is more compassionate. And it's her influence that makes Krishna as Mahaprabhu the deliverer of the most fallen everywhere, anywhere, all people. This is coming from the compassionate, and it's because of her compassion that the great acharyas are filled with that impetus as well. And they are completely dedicated to spreading the glories of Radha and Krishna, and especially Radhika. That's a speciality of our line. We've been hearing that. So, Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Worshipable Lord, Deva. He is not a demigod. He is the master of all the demigods. At the same time, his worshipable goddess, Para Devata, is Sri Radha in Radhakund, especially when she is in Man. Right? Then he has to worship her extra hard, which he loves, because she's presenting that obstacle. Man creates a kind of separation, and Krishna is then compelled to overcome that by some clever device. And then that makes the gopis so pleased for two reasons. One, they love to see Krishna submissive to Radhika, but why do they want that? Because they know that it gives Krishna the greatest pleasure. It's not something like, oh, she's dominated you, ha ha, fie on you. No. Everything that the gopis do is all about Krishna's pleasure. So even the idea of being swapaksha with Radhika and wanting to please her and serve her first and not serve Krishna directly, that's also pleasing to Krishna. It's not denying Krishna anything. It's giving Krishna the greatest pleasure to see those servants. He loves the Manjaris. He loves Rupa Manjari. He wants to embrace Rupa Manjari. But why? This is in Vilap Kushmanjali in commentary by Srila Gurudev, because she is imbued with a special mood of love and affection for Radhika, right? And because of that, she reflects all the qualities and moods of Radhika. So by embracing Rupa Manjari, he's embracing and tasting Radhika in a very special way. Right? So Radhika will sometimes arrange for the Manjaris to be with Krishna, but not in the same way, not for the same purpose. It's very subtle, very different. So, once, as Sri Jayadev Goswami was composing the verses of his Sri Gita Govinda, a pastime appeared in his heart, in which Srimati Radhika entered her sulky mood, Man. He saw in his meditation that all Krishna's repeated attempts failed to remove her Man. Then the mood entered his heart, in which he understood that in order to pacify Srimati Radhika, Sri Krishna placed his head at her lotus feet. This filled Sri Jayadev with fear. He could not bring himself to write it. He thought, Sri Krishna is everyone's worshipful Supreme Lord, and he possesses all potencies. Srimati Radhika is his potency and maidservant. How is it possible for Sri Krishna to put his head at Radhika's lotus feet? That would transgress the principles of religion, right? Because prior to that, all the sampradayas worshipped Narayana, right, as the Lord of Lakshmi, which he is. And even in Dwarka, Krishna controls his queens. They can't control him in the same way, right? This had never been heard of before. But by understanding this pastime, which we're going to hear, we understand that principle that Saraswati Prabhupada explained, how they are one, they are equal, they are counterparts. It's not one higher and lower. There are two aspects of supreme love, right? And so they are in their relationship with each other as Radhika becomes so humbled and shy and ashamed that Krishna says such sweet things and considers her in such an exalted way because she's so humble. And Krishna, he can also feel like that in relationship with Radhika. He also wants to worship her feet. She wants to worship him as her Lord and Master life after life, doing anything for him, and he has the same mood towards her. They play different roles at different times, but it's all this exchange of extraordinary selfless love. So after contemplating this, Krishna bowing his head and touching Radhika's feet, his hand trembled and lost the grip of his pen. He could write no more, so he went to bathe in the Ganga. Meanwhile, Sri Krishna, the topmost relisher of transcendental mellows, assumed the form of Sri Jayadev and went to his house. In the form of Jayadev, Krishna asked Padmavati to bring him the manuscript. And she said, "Oh, you're back so soon from your bath." What? Anyway, here's the manuscript. He then personally completed the verse, Smara Garala Kandanam, the deadly poison of amorous love, that Jayadev had begun to write. He then added Mama Sirasi Mandanam, Dehi Pada Palavam Udaram. The deadly poison of amorous love is counteracted by decorating my head with your flower-like feet. Beautiful. Smara Garala Kandanam, Mama Sirasi Mandanam, Dehi Pada Palavam Udaram. The beautiful flower blossoms of your feet counteract the deadly poison of amorous love. They extinguish the terrifying fire of the pain of that love, which rages within my heart. Therefore, please be kind and allow your feet to decorate my head. This is not something Krishna is doing reluctantly, right? Like in this world, if somebody is defeated, bow down, it's humiliating, right? Bow down. Who's your daddy? Something like that. It's humiliating. But here, Krishna's taking the greatest joy in that. What was the poison? It was the poison of separation. You won't see me. And now I am touching my head to my most desired object of love, your lotus feet. So he wrote that verse, Krishna disguised as Jayadev. And then Sri Krishna then left the house, and a short time later, Jayadev returned. Surprised, his wife asked, "How are you able to come back so quickly? Just a short while ago you returned, wrote something in your book, and again went out to take bath." Jayadev Goswami asked for his manuscript. And upon opening it, he saw that his unfinished verse was now complete. Filled with wonder and weeping, he told his wife, "Oh, Devi, you are blessed. You had darshan of Sri Shyama Krishna, who personally came here and completed the verse. I was afraid to write. He completed the verse that I was afraid to write. Krishna is brought under control by prema, not by devotion based on rules and regulations." That's astonishing. That doesn't mean that we can abandon rules and regulations. Don't think you can do that and call it prema. When you have prema, then you are spontaneously motivated to do service in so many ways. Generally, however, the activities of Ragatmika or Raganuga devotees, those following the Ragatmika, they follow the rules and regulations because the sadhana is pretty much the same as the sadhya, the practice. Hearing, chanting, attending arti, doing all these things. But you may not do them in the same regulated way because you're impelled by very specific urgency and need for service at any particular time. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada had one disciple. He was very competent. I believe at this time he was living outside and doing business, so he would do important service, but he was always requesting the devotees to give him a little heads up because he had so many business responsibilities and all. And so he wanted to know a bit in advance so he could arrange his schedule and get it done nicely. So then once Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada asked him directly to do something, and the man said, oh, why couldn't you have asked me this a week before? I could have arranged everything so I could, accomplish this nicely. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada said, well, how could I do that? I myself only received the order 5 minutes ago. That shows us who's guru. Krishna is guru. This is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and our gurus are his direct external representative, but that order is coming through them from Krishna himself. Right? They are directly giving Krishna's desire. When you're on that Raganuga platform, you are spontaneously connected with Krishna's immediate desires. And that's why sometimes one on the Raganuga plane, it may not do everything in the same way as somebody who's practicing sadhana in a very strict way, this at this time, this at that time. Even the offering of food, right? Do the cowherd boys offer their food to Krishna? No, sometimes they'll taste it first to make sure it's sweet enough and nice enough for Krishna. One time, Srila Prabhupada was traveling in India on the train with his disciple and servant. And they stopped at a certain station, the train. And Srila Prabhupada said, oh, go out and buy a bag of samosas. They make very good samosas at this train stop. Because he knew all the trains. He traveled all over India extensively as a business person. And he knew what was at each stop. And back then, they cooked better, They would even use ghee. They would use garlic and onion. And so, servant went out, bought a bag of samosas. Then he brought them back into the car. They were in a room, private room car. And the servant put them on the table, and he had a picture of Srila Prabhupada, and he, starts offering them. And Srila Prabhupada said, what are you doing? He says, I'm offering them, Srila Prabhupada. He says, I'm right here. I'm right here. So Srila Prabhupada doesn't have to go through the formalities of that offering process because his very life, soul, everything is offered to Krishna. There's no necessity to regulate. We do those things because we are connecting ourselves and offering ourselves through the mercy of our Guru. When you come to those higher stages of Bhav Bhakti, you can directly connect internally with your Guru. And you'll still go through the process, but it's a very different thing. You could actually don't have to do that, But generally, those kinds of personalities do that, for example, to teach others, but they no longer have to because they are completely surrendered in body, mind, words, everything. Right? So everything they do is out of love for Krishna. So, Krishna is controlled by prema, not by devotion based on rules and regulations. But our Guru gives us the rules and regulations, and by following them, we develop love for our Guru and appreciation for him, and in this way we are connected with the principles of bhakti, with connection with Radha and Krishna, with Mahaprabhu, by the mercy of Guru. We need rules and regulations. But the ultimate benefit is, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur says this in his song, what is it? Shuno He Rasika Jana. He says that when the soul performs Vaidhi Bhakti very nicely, Krishna gives them the gift of independence. He bestows upon them spontaneous devotional service and the gift of independence. What does that mean? Independence and freedom from the sometimes constraints of rules and regulations in order to freely and completely serve Sri Krishna. Who has the most independence? The gopis. More independence than any other kind of devotee, because they can even directly reject Krishna to his face. When he asks them or tells them something, they can say, who are you? You think you're the proprietor of this forest? You can tax us? Go away. And they laugh and mock him. Complete independence. Could any of us dare to do that? No, of course not. We wouldn't want to. But we can appreciate reading when Radhika and her associates do it, but that on this highest plane of love. Mother Jashoda, she can tie the Lord up against his wishes. Against the wishes. She overcame the direct desire of the Lord. He did not want to be tied up. That's why the rope always expanded. Yogamaya, his internal energy, said, oh, you don't want to be tied up, so she made that arrangement. The rope would always be inadequate. But then her love was so overpowering that he had to be tied up. He's controlled by love. We cannot imagine the glories of Radharani. She is Sarva Lakshmi, the sum total of all Lakshmis, or goddesses of fortune. Ananta Koti Vishnu Loka Kada Namra Padma Jachite Himaji Japulo Maja Vidinchaja Varapade Apada Siddhi Digda Satpadanguli Nake Kada Kadeshasi Hamam Kripakatakshabajanam Makeshwari, Kriyeshwari, Swadeshwari, Sudeshwari, Shriveda Bharatishwari, Pramana Sasaneshwari, Rameshwari, Shameshwari, Pramoda Kananeshwari, Vajeshwari, Vajadipe, Shiradike Namostute. You are worshipped by Sri Lakshmi, the goddess of unlimited millions of Vaikuntha planets. Sri Parvati, Indra's wife, and Saraswati all worship and attain benedictions from you. Meditation on even one of your toenails grants an infinite variety of perfections. Oh, Srimati Radhika, when, oh when, will you bestow upon me your merciful sidelong glance? I remember the first time I heard these verses when I saw Gurudev in 97 in California, led by him, and there was such a mood, a happy, joyful mood hearing these songs. And then Gurudev would pause in between different lines and speak some sweet pastime. And I hadn't been practicing for really hardly at all, sporadically at best for some 15 years. And immediately all kinds of taste and happiness and joy come flooding back. These songs given to us by our Goswamis are so full of rasa. We can't necessarily taste rasa in its full aspects. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says of Vidurya Kadambini in the last chapters, I think it's chapter 8, that you may be on the level of Bhav Bhakti for many lifetimes before you can really comprehend rasa in its complete form. Braj Ras, Gopi Ras, right? But even a drop of a drop of a drop of a drop is so powerful. And then the next translation of the next verse, verse 12 we read too, you are the mistress of all kinds of sacrifices, especially the topmost Yugala Miland Yagya, that special yagya, the meeting of Radha and Krishna. Of all actions, since you are the root of all potencies, Mula Shakti Tattva, so you're the mistress of all actions, of the mantras uttered at yagyas, and of the sacrificial offerings presented by the demigods, or to the demigods, of all the demigods, of the words of the three Vedas, of the enforcement of all scriptural principles, of Sri Rama Devi, the goddess of fortune, of Sri Shama Devi, the goddess of forgiveness, and especially of the delightful kunjas in Vrindavan. When will you mercifully make me your dasi and grant me the qualification to render service to your amorous pastimes with the Prince of Braj? O Srimati Radhika, owner and maintainer of Braj, I offer pranam unto you time and again. These are her qualities. Again, every potency, every yagya, every mantra, all the offerings on every level, all springs from Srimati Radhika. Right? This is meant to be understood. Brahma and Shankara cannot attain the darshan of her lotus feet. And even Krishna has worshipped her feet. She is Sarva Lakshmi, the embodiment of all goddesses of fortune, and Sarvakanti, the only one who fulfills all the transcendental desires of Sri Krishna. Others, like Chandravali, Lalita, and Vishaka, can somewhat fulfill his desires, but not all of them. Krishna thinks, if Radhika is not participating in the Rasa Leela, then what is the use of it? He broke the pride of the other gopis and left to find Sri Radha. Thus, she is Para Devata, the supreme worshipable deity. The glories of Srimati Radhika are innumerable. Now, the Vaishnavas in this assembly will glorify her. She will not be as much pleased with the Abhishek, the bathing ceremony, as she is with the chanting of her glories. But by chanting her glories, those who participate in the Abhishek will get much more pleasure and happiness and appreciation. And if they're very fortunate, meditate on the descriptions in Vilap Kushmanjali of Rati Manjari, Raghunath Das, describing that extraordinary bathing ceremony and all the secrets contained within it. And then that morning, they had a play. Was that morning or evening? Anyway, they had a play. There's even a picture of it. I can't see who's doing it. It's probably local Brajbasis, because this is in Vrindavan. All right. That looks like Mathura. Yeah, that looks like the Mathura Mat. Okay. Anyway, so we will stop here. Let me close this. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srila Gurudev, all glories to all the assembled Vaishnavas,